Brian, we've had some changes though down here in Florida. Some significant changes. Let's talk about one of those changes, something called the statute of limitations. What is that?
So the statute of limitations is basically you need, prior to last Saturday, you need to either have a lawsuit filed or your claim settled within, for most negligence actions, if someone's injured, within 4 years. But that actually changed, and it actually was knocked back to 2 years.
Right.
So essentially, if you wait more than 2 years, which I know that sounds like a long time to most people, but in lawyer speak, it's actually kind of short. If you wait 2 years and 1 day, then your claim is gone. I know recently I had a client came, I think the car wreck was about 4 years old, and we were actually able to file a lawsuit in time. But if you don't now,
somebody that was
March
trying to work
25th.
with the insurance company. You remember that? Yeah.
No,
So,
I did have exactly that, trying to negotiate with the insurance company, and they weren't even offering to pay her out-of-pocket medical bills, which in my opinion is unreasonable. So she contacted us after years and years of dealing with it. We filed a lawsuit, and we will likely get her claim resolved. But the big thing is statute of limitations. Now it went from 4 years in Florida for negligence actions to 2 years. I think another state really close to us has a 2-year statute of limitations.
right. I was going to say Alabama's got a 2-year statute of limitations. Georgia has a 2-year statute of limitations. Now Florida has a 2-year statute of limitations on negligence cases and wrongful death cases. It still holds out that there are longer statutes of limitations for contract cases and other types of things. But what we're talking about is your general negligence cases, your cases where there's a slip and fall, a trip and fall, an automobile accident that results in either injury or death. As of last Saturday, which is the day after the governor signed the bill, you now have a 2-year statute of limitations period, but it's not retroactive. So, Brian, let's talk about what retroactive would mean in that situation, and you know how this applies going forward.
So a lot of laws that are passed normally are for cases that accrue or something that happens today or tomorrow. For statute of limitations, it does not change cases that occurred or an accident happened, a slip and fall happened prior to the governor signing. I think it was March 25th. So basically every case or injury that occurred prior to March 25th has a 4-year statute of limitations. In other words, you need to either have a case settled or a lawsuit filed within 4 years. And then everything March 25th, I believe, and after is a 2-year statute of limitations. So you have a much shorter time frame. And I don't practice in Alabama, but I do know a lot of the law. I assume that just increases the amount of lawsuits that you have to file.
Yes, it does. And so what happens is, when you're in a negligence situation, usually there's a certain number of months that you're waiting to see what a client's doing. Everybody's like, well, why don't you just go out and file a lawsuit right away? We don't do that. We want to see if the client, what path the client is going to take. Is it a surgery case, a non-surgery case? If it's a catastrophic case, that's a different story, but those are very, very few cases. So the basic automobile accident case, you want to see, does this person need surgery? Are they going to have surgery? That's going to affect when and how you might file a lawsuit. But what happens is, because sometimes the prognosis may be, all right, the doctor says, I'm going to have surgery. I need surgery. And, you say, well, how long can I put it off, doc? Because I really don't want to have somebody cutting on my neck, going in, moving my larynx out of the way, moving my jugular vein out of the way, going in and putting steel plates and cadaver bones in my neck or in my low back. And I want to put that off as long as possible. Well, then the insurance company says, well, they're never going to have it. So since they're never going to have the surgery, we're only going to give you $10 for somebody that's been severely injured. And so then that creates litigation, and that's what happens. In Georgia, it's a hard 2 years, meaning you have to file your case and serve the defendant within that 2-year period. In Alabama, it's 2 years, and you get a short extension to file or serve them. And now in Florida, you get, file it, and you get 120 days to serve the defendant. But 2 years is 2 years, and like you said, in lawyer speak, that can go very, very quickly.
And you mentioned one of the things which you think finding somebody and giving them a piece of paper is very easy, but I've had cases where the defendant, I know one of our clients right now who's been on WMBB before, the person who we are trying to serve with a lawsuit is hiding from us. So there's certain things that pop up. I mean, if you are suing a big company, it is very easy to give them a copy of the paperwork. They go through it all the time. I mean, some of the big retail stores, they deal with lawsuits all the time because they see millions of people. But sometimes there's individuals who will just avoid being served. There's a process to technically serve them where you go through the Secretary of State, but that is a big deal. So when you have a 2-year statute of limitations, 99% of the time we can find somebody and serve them. But every now and then there are people who are hiding, or I mean, we've had cases where the defendant, unrelated to the car wreck, passes. They were just an older gentleman, and you actually have to open up an estate
Right.
so you can actually properly file a lawsuit against the correct entity. And it's just to preserve our clients' rights. But that's one of the challenges we have now is there's going to be a lot more lawsuits because that time frame has been cut in half.
And before this law went into place, some of the information we got from the clerks of court that there were literally tens of thousands of lawsuits being filed prior to the enactment of this statute. Now, there were other things that were contained in this supposed tort reform bill, which basically is just an insurance reform bill. It's an insurance bailout bill.
And that's what President Trump called it. It is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I don't want to toot anybody's horn, but there's another big law firm. They were on a pretty national platform, a big national platform, and that's exactly what it is. It is basically saving money for the insurance company. And it's crazy that they are saying this to reduce premiums, but they didn't tie any premium reductions or caps.
Hey, look,
to
let me tell you this. In Alabama, when we did this back in the 1990s, have your insurance premiums gone down? All right, anybody, 1990s. If your insurance premiums have gone down and you kept the same coverage, you call me. I'll buy you a $100 steak dinner anywhere you want to go. Okay?
Where are you eating? That is a fancy steak dinner.
Look, it is a fancy. That's why I'm saying I'm willing to go fancy. Hey, by the way, state of Florida, we just passed this insurance reform bill for property insurance. I tell you what, same thing here, state of Florida. Anybody who carries the same coverage and the same policy and your insurance premiums went down since February of this year, I'll buy you a steak dinner. I guarantee you I'm going to be eating well, and I'm afraid nobody's going to be able to win that bet.
Nope.
Hey, folks, it's been a lively conversation. I'm fired up now, unfortunately, and I got to go home in about 15 minutes. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few moments.